Good evening, everyone, and a very warm welcome to all of you who have joined us on this Zoom session, and to all of those who are watching us on social media. We are live on Facebook. So, welcome to all of you who have joined us there as well. Since the lockdown has begun, IPPL, the Intercultural Poetry and Performance Library, has been engaged, has been trying to use poetry to keep all of us connected, all of us members. We have had quite a number of poetry events on Sundays where each of us, we are given themes and we ask IPPL poets members to write a few lines, write poems. We've also had quite a number of online events in the past. We have another one coming up very soon. So we have events like poetry reading by poets, by IPPL members. We've also had conversations with eminent Indian English poets. Since it's no longer possible for us to use the library, ICCR library space, which is where IPPL functions from, we are now using this online platform, and it's really wonderful to see everyone connected through poetry, everyone connected by poetry. And I'm looking forward to this evening of poetry readings. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nishidi. I would now welcome President IPPL, Professor Sanjukta Dasgupta, to deliver her lecture. Ma'am.
Good evening, and this is really a moment of great joy to see that on this platform we will have 21 IPPL poets reading. And so I'm really looking forward. All of them will break the silence by talking about silence or reading their poems about silence. And as you probably remember, when you were school kids, you were told that, well, speech is silver and silence is golden. And then, of course, when you walked into a library, there was something like silence, please, everywhere. And of course, IPPL being the Intercultural Poetry and Performance Library, on its poster has our world's youngest librarian who is asking us to be silent with a finger on his lips. So it's a wonderful moment, really, to be connecting the way we are, maintaining social distance, and yet being so much a part of the exuberance and the positivity that words can bring. We cannot do anything more than that. We cannot really invent vaccines, but sometimes vaccines can also happen in terms of the intangible. And here I think IPPL in its own limit, with all its limitations and its own limited way, has taken those baby steps towards feeling secure, towards a sense of belonging in terms of our Sunday meets, in terms of our video platforms that we have been able to engage. And so I'm delighted the way in which all our members have responded with so much of enthusiasm. And I look forward to this going on forever. And regarding silence, of course, the one way is that of interpreting silence, of course, is what we would romanticize as how beautiful silence is and all about noise pollution. And if you have to hear the sound of silence, those of us who are old timers may remember the Simon Garfunkel song about the sound of silence and how romantic silence is. And however, silence also speaks. So the voice of silence, the communication that silence can also convey, that's the non-verbal communication that silence can bring in, is one way of looking at silence. Another is the more psychological, distressing sense of silence, when you interiorize feelings, stress, cause needless agony to your own self through a sense of depression. And so that can also be very, very subversive to what we would generally regard as something that we have to maintain in terms of interiorizing, introspecting, but then that can also be stressful because human beings are not about being deaf and dumb. Human beings are not about being dumb, but to communicate. So, human beings are generally very gregarious, which is why social distancing has become such a huge issue. And there is also another point about silence, the gendered interpretation of silence. And you can immediately understand that, well, women are expected to be silent and expected to be silent service providers. So that too needs to be critiqued, interrogated. Don't know whether we will have poems which will talk about the psychological stress, about the gendered interpretation of silence, the sort of forcing women to be silent. And which is why, if you think in terms of a binary, women are supposed to be silent and men to be vocal, if not bellowing men and absolutely silent women. And of course, finally, I would say that in poetry, silence, breaking of silence, as Madhumita rightly pointed out, is one where we are looking at various levels of silence, the empirical as well as the ontological. And therefore, I look forward to an evening of many interpretations of silence by 21 poets of IPPL, which who are, I'm sure, the best poets in the whole of India. So with that, I would like the coordinators to take over. And thank you for your very, very enthusiastic response to our request that there should be a few coordinators from our members. Our EC members are a little exhausted. They are not now a committee where the EC members have worked very hard, and we want you to participate by even coordinating these programs. And of course, we will announce more programs as the time elapses. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am, for that wonderful introduction. Ma'am has introduced us to that many silences that can be, and we hope that today, in this lineup of poets who will read their poetry or other poets, we will talk about the many silences. With this, I welcome the other coordinator of this program, Sudeshna Chakraborty, to take up the anchoring from here. Sudeshna.
Thank you so much, Madhumita Di, Nishidi, and of course, Shanjukta Di have set the tone for what we are planning to do here. And it's always so good to have your ex-teacher start the proceeding, Shanjukta Di, giving us that much needed vocal tonic of being the best coordinators and the best poets in whole of India and all that. Exaggerated or not, it sure gave a much needed boost. There are a lot of poets here, and we are very thankful, both Madhumita Di and me, that everyone was so enthusiastic in heeding to our call and breaking the silence. And I will let the poets speak for themselves without taking up much space. The first on the list, Boshudhara Roy. I would ask you to please unmute yourself and present your piece.
Thank you, Sudeshna. Thank you. Am I audible?
Yes, yes, you are.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, everybody. And I think I would thank Sanjukta ma'am because it was she. I spoke to her one day and she said that I should be joining IPPL. And then I joined immediately. And I have, I get to learn a lot from each poet in the platform. So thank you. Thank you very much for having me here. And I would like to read one poem, and it is titled Woman to Woman. And I hope that it talks about the gendered dimension of silence that Sanjukta ma'am was referring to. So here it goes. Woman to woman. All I'm trying to say is that it won't ever be the way you see it in your mind's eye. Between where you are and where you want to go will always be this river of them that won't be content with flowing the way it's meant. In its flash flood each day, it must enter you, churn its muddy depths in your blood, inoculate you against desire, ambition, hope, even need, till you believe that to breathe is enough, their air a gift to you. Realize there are 1,000 ways for the mind to fight back, for noise to pierce through silence. I was wrong. I chose the trial by fire. Valiant in piety over flames, this body unscathed for all to see, my furrowed heart kept burning, tireless, unquenched, even as I sought the earth's loins for solace. For daring to step out of their circle, led by my yearning for one supple, frisking deer of gold, I became captive to no 10-headed hydra, but their river I had swallowed. In the mind's eye, people will always be more perfect than they are. The wisdom of rulers greater than that of plebeians. Love over and above all else. When betrayal strikes, the peace of silence beckons. But generations hence I know, no silence remains sacrosanct. It haunts history and must every day be exorcised, filled with color, form, noise, cut into strips, sold for a price. Words certainly are no more fortunate, for they will be tied, twisted, blurred, erased to meet meanings, to tell their tales. But if life is a tree, it's always better to choose words over silence, to sow syllables, notes, so that what grows is green, spoken, reiterated, seen in the wisdom of bark, the camaraderie of leaves, in tired birds coming to roost. I think of the tree I sat under, wooed to hope with a signet ring. That's how life grows, without from within. There will be no dearth of fetters, rivers, circles, rings. What will matter is to grow what is in you, never what they sow, to sing of what rushes in your veins, to know who you are once you have abandoned their name. Refuse to acknowledge as yours the branches and flowers painted in their mirrors. Remember, only when you draw sap from the earth's breast, hone the earthworm in your soil, only when the sky stretches above you free and winds from all four directions lap against your limbs, only then know you have arrived. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vashudhara. Yes, in the mind's eye, people are always better than they are in reality, maybe. But in reality, that was a wonderful poem. And thank you so much for starting off the journey. It's such a good note. Now, I would like to invite our second speaker, Ipshita Ganguly. Would she please present her piece? Ipshita.
Thank you, Sudeshna. Thank you, Madhumita. And a very, very good evening to all the poets of IPPL. It's wonderful to be here, albeit online. My first reading after a very long time, actually. Great to be here. So, silence. My poem was born of this particular quotation or an internet forward I think I received at random. This doesn't separate people, silence does. My poem is entitled Sharing Silence. What if you and I stretched out against the sky in silence, breathing in life? We would be distant observers that lights. What if we learned to walk on a cliff, lush green darkness and misty swirls embracing us, and stretched to hold each other just so we would not fall over? What if you and I traveled high to the mountains, bare beauty around us, pure and rarefied, and we stood still, so still that we became one with the heights etched to it? What if on a rainy, lazy afternoon, you and I learned to sit still, look out at the patterns through the rain, you with smoke and me with my smile, sharing our silence? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ipshita. That was wonderful. Comfortable silence, being able to be comfortable in each other's silence is such a wonderful thing to aim for in any kind of a relationship. And you, I think, presented that wonderfully. Thank you very much. We will now go on to the next poet, Chandrani Mukherjee. Would you please come?
Thank you, Sudeshna. A very good evening to everyone present here. And thank you once again, IPPL, for this wonderful theme. You've given us a lovely opportunity to express our thoughts and feelings on silence. Mine is a little different in theme as well as this was composed by me around 2 years ago on seeing a particular picture, but it goes, I believe, with the theme. It's titled The Monument. The remnants of the building stopped me in my tracks. I expected to see a monument that mocks nature's wrath, reflecting man's ambition to subdue time. Yet I see a humble acceptance of one majestic that bows gracefully before the Almighty. The pillars, bereft of their spires, stand aloof like toddlers wondering. A part of the roof had inclined towards the gentle slope with an intent to communion with earth. Its humility barely understood by the ambitious race that once inhabited it. The intricate carvings retold tales of bygone eras through legends sporting emotions, lost on the time travelers. Urchins gaily wandered by, hoping to earn a few foreign pennies or sell souvenirs to impeccably fitted explorers. Few barely noticed the broken urn in the corner of the paved courtyard, solemnly witnessing the silent river of life flow by. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chandrani. This is a time travel moment for both of us on a personal level as well. I think after the university days, this is the first time that two classmates are catching each other up. And it is wonderful to hear you present such an evocative poem. The rest of our catching up we'll do on a separate platform. Now I'll go on and invite our next speaker, Siddhartha Sethia. Please, will you give us the pleasure of
good evening,
sharing.
everybody. I am Siddharth. I would like to begin with a poem called Silent Prayers. Silent prayers reach God much quicker for they are free from load of sound. Uh, the second one is when a question forms upon the lips. When a question forms upon the lips, an answer grows in the heart. What else remains for you to know? Fill not your mind with chaff, nor tease your lips with conundrums. You are the graven image, true, and the votive offering too. Sail through the oceans then, and walk upon the shore, and with never a vain reckoning of the fruits of your endeavor. Intertwined in the skein of the passing moments are moments imperishable. Forbear now and hearken of the ocean's behest. Churn thou, it says, churn thou evermore. When a question forms upon the lips, the answer grows in the heart. And the last one is a very small. Silent deeds. Man may be good or evil, it's the time that matters. Looks may be comely or ugly, it's the virtue that is entrusted. Life may be short or long, it's the deed that counts. Thank you, everybody, and IPPL.
Thank you, Siddharthji, for those two wonderful poems. Indeed, the first line that you said, that silent prayers are the ones that have the most effect. And we often create so much of noise, and there is so much of ceremony that we indulge in while praying, whereas we forget that the person, the entity that we are praying to has no need for all that. No words are actually required. You were wonderful. Thank you very much, and we look forward to hearing you again in future. Now I will ask Annapurna Palit to please present her piece.
Hello, good evening to everybody. Much thanks, IPPL, for giving me the opportunity to read today on a session which is themed on silence. Thanks, Madhumita. Thanks, Sadeshna. Now, I will not be reading a piece written by myself, but I will be reading a piece written by a young poet of today, Raja Chakraborty. And this poem is called Poetry, the Silent Cry. And I chose it particularly because it has a very aesthetic look at silence, where words attempt to break through silence. So, Poetry, the Silent Cry by Raja Chakraborty. Muffled cries pushed at chest walls, looking for a way out, looking for words, elusive words. Blue skies, deep breath, freedom. Shapeless, soundless, like mad silent waves, they surged and splashed against the dark confines, breaking into a macabre dance of thousand thoughts. Ennui, broken heart, empathy, trying to find existence in a voice of very own, a voice to house orphaned emotions and loitering syllables. The beep was heard, finding resonance in mute ink. It convoluted in stammering lines, gathering momentum, till the void in blank pages filled up, rising water challenging the blanks. Spilling over, the first words spoke of the echo, of stifled minds that was heard beyond and immortalized in the name of poetry. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Annapurna Ji, for giving voice to such a wonderful poem. It gave us a look into a very, very creative mind. Thank you for choosing this poem. We will now go on to the next poet, Nabamaluti Chakraborty. Nabamaluti Di, would you please make yourself visible to us? Is Navamaluti Di here?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, absolutely, loud and clear.
Okay, thank you so much. I thank IPPL for this wonderful opportunity nearly every other Sunday. And I think this has made accepting the lockdown quite a pleasure. Okay, so today the theme is on silence, and I'll read my poem for you all. Silence on silence, the psychical promise of silence. I do not mind the silence anymore. A haven of self-will contentment runs through the sieve of the mind. No urges need be pushed, no hopes need be revived. Someday we will realize that with all we have, our fatigue sips in and all our enthusiasm is lost. How to accept this feel within is not known. It's a strange heaviness that Chanakya too had felt before he left for his exile. It's just that life grows lackluster, a feel that even bold conquerors in the past had felt. It is a creepy, silent heaviness when nothing makes sense in that silence. With each passing day, the lure of attractions become a vacuum in a heavy sense of emptiness. It steps us on our track in the gloom, and life becomes just a space to look back at time. What name can we give this feel? Is it the ringing of the school bell at the day's end, or the grief of a Vaidehi, so flippantly disregarded by her lord, or Draupadi's silence in the quiet of each passing night? Or can it be Mandodari's sullen gloom of self-esteem, or Urmila's quiet bid to be left all alone, or the silence of a basil plant left outdoors, or the strength of bliss in Buddha's meditation? Here, there, everywhere we find a strange heaviness, a strange happiness, and a strange notion of what is and was, of what is and isn't, of what is and should not ever be. And within the arena of a quiet comprehension, there is the silence of the night, the silence of departure, the silence that turns around and goes off to sleep, only to find in the morrow the silence of a brilliant dawn, of a promising rose, of the quiet falling rain, of a beautiful smile. There lies the solace of a prelude of love and divine wonder rung in by hope, the cyclical promise of silence. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Navamalutidi. That was very, very evocative. And indeed, in this kind of lockdown, quarantine situation, I wish that we could say that I do not mind the silence anymore. But thank God we mind the silence enough to want to connect. And that's why these kind of events are happening and we are getting to hear such evocative poems. Thank you very much. We will now go on to the next poet, Pranab Ghosh. Uh, I would request Pranab Ghosh to please make himself visible and present his piece.
Hello, this is Pranab here. I will read two poems. One is short and the other one is a bit longer than that. The first poem is Lost Access. The silence all around is deafening. Only there are sounds of breaking hearts. People walk, run, stumble and fall, never to rise again. The soul of the existence is giving way to unbridled decay. The economy is gearless, a free fall, concealed in drummed up figures. The skeleton dressed in the attire of a new bride. Time is ravishing you, chewing your bones and sucking your blood. What the virus did, more than it killed. Half dead, world crawls, its axis lost. And the next poem is The Last Sleep. Have you seen the end of the world? As night lulls the day to sleep, purple hyacinths glow in the night light of the moon. Your breath moistens my chest, your lips all over my face. The virus will kill us all, everybody. You and me, your father, grandfather, my father. Old age is cursed, or is it the youth? My heart beats against yours. Your saliva wets my lips. Time for you to depart has come. My heart aches, and a red flower blooms at the left ventricle of my heart. I pluck it and give it to you. You put the flower in your hair. Have you seen the end of the world? Before the virus catches you, I will lull you to sleep. In the sleep, you will dream of my death lying by your side. I fought the virus tooth and nail, uprooted it from the earth and threw it into the abyss of hell, where it rots now. You have become a yellow flower. The birds and bees are circling around you, your saliva, your lips. You caress me in dreams. I have fought the virus tooth and nail. Now I sleep in your arms. Yellow flowers all over me, my last sleep. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pranabda, for those two wonderful poems. The second one, especially fighting the virus and yet that desire for human connection and love, that is something that we are all trying to hold on to in these trying times, and you presented that so evocatively. Thank you, Pranabda. Thank you very much. Next, I will call on Sunil Bhandari to present his piece. Sunil ji.
Yes, thank you. You can hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Super. So I'll just change the tone and tenor a little bit, go away from the pandemic and the problems associated. The silence I address is the ambiguous silence I keep encountering with people, with the women in my life, of course. Silence they bring into my life and the ambiguity of it. Sometimes, what do I do with that silence? You know, that is what is the topic which I'm addressing here. Her silence itself was the invite. I could be a purveyor, a participant, or a victim. All choices lay like a carpet between us, waiting for me to walk them or withdraw. Love said, Stay, indulge, understand, assuage. Experience said, walk away. Her silences are a war zone born of unreconciled hurt, unadapted to answers, always seeking ammunition. But love is forever a death wish, less in itself, if not risky. But love is forever a death wish, less in itself, if not risky. I could face her fire and burn. I could be doused in her cold water, but being with her being was the only being. For she would wither without touch, a hand held, a word, an admonition. In the reaching out lay succor. Everything else was a key left at the doorway for the one who already had the key, but not the door. Thank you.
Brilliant.
Thank you so much, Sunilji. We have heard, even at the risk of sounding a bit essentialist and maybe getting a scolding from SDG ma'am, but we have heard that when a woman is silent, listen to her very, very carefully. So you have done that wonderfully, I guess, listened to every silence very, very carefully and presented it in an extremely evocative manner. Thank you so much for that. We'll now go on to Mandakini Bhattacharya for her presentation.
Yeah.
Mandakini, please make yourself visible. Yes.
Thank you so much, Sudeshna. This is a wonderful hosting by both of our coordinators. Good evening to everyone at IPPL, and I'm so, so thankful for this opportunity. My poem reads, I hope I'm audible, Sudeshna? Doing fine?
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
Okay. So my poem reads, a patchwork of silence. A patchwork of silence. I know you can hear silence or even see it. I touch silence. I touch its textures, its yarns, its knitted and ribbed varieties. I have known neoprene silence, tough, waterproof, infallible in the midst of tears. Silence, as in Monoragam, the silent sonata, where it stretches like portobello canvas separating two people knitted together like gutter satin with silk warp and cotton weft. With silk warp and cotton weft. Silence as of the lambs, menacing, matte finish, warm textured, dark like soft shell jersey, throttling you with its insulating warm touch. The silence of Kamoshi. Hello? Hello?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
The silence of Kamoshi, the musical, where deafness and muteness are softened and washed lovingly like brocade or crepe de chine till they emerge into a suede vision of life. Silence envelops in soft folds of muslin and mulmul and cambric, infant fabrics, infant clothes. When my baby rests on my breast after a night of tormenting fever, I have known the silence of death. I have known the silence of death, glass shards twinkling in a sink and a beckoning bathtub, and admired its swashbuckling walk in Trafalgar twill and sweeping cloak of gold lamy. But I wince in fear. But I wince in fear when pandemic crushed velour and marbled velvet entomb my city and choke its satin and silk shimmering festivities to welcome the elephant cart. but I wince in fear when pandemic crush velour and marbled velvet entomb my city and choke its satin and silk shimmering festivities to welcome the elephant god. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. The varieties of silence, the different shades, you presented that wonderfully. And on a slightly a lighter note, I could hear there that uh, that sadness of not being able to give in to the touch of the silks and the muslins and the brocades for a long time now. All of us are living in our cotton PJs at home, and so that vanity somewhere also comes up, and that made me miss my wardrobe as well. But that was just me being facile. It was wonderful. Mandakini sounds a bit official to keep calling you Mandakini rather than Mandy, but okay, this is an official platform. Thank you again. Now I will call upon Nabonita Shengupto again. Very difficult for me to pronounce that big name. I haven't done that in like 15 years now. Nabonita, please make yourself visible and present your piece before I give in to my impulses and call you Nabs.
So you did call that. Well, thank you, Sridishna, and this is going to be my first virtual reading at IPPL, and I'm pretty excited about it. Now, coincidentally, this day also coincides with Mary Shelley's birth anniversary. So I thought, why not commemorate her birth anniversary with a poem on silence, which I've tried to relate to Frankenstein and monsters relationship. So here my poem titled To Frankenstein. Your silence to my first pleadings, and those ears which heeded not to my newborn angst, painted my innocence in colors cunning and harsh. In the stillness of jungles and moors, where lonely I stood, howling terrifying agonies on a skewer of loneliness, I became the monster I never desired to be. Yet, once in lifetime, in a distant cottage, through a blind man's old ears, my dumb world had found words, and the monster in becoming had hibernated for a short while. Short-lived that respite was to be, ill-fated that I had been, to be the monster, cursed by Creator, abandoned right on birth, love and company silenced by diseased hate and fear. But now, Frankenstein, let's keep company in this deathly quietness that binds us from all sides. Just you and I, and a battle line that generations will stretch till eternity. Just you and I, and a battle line that generations will stretch till eternity. Thank you.
Thank you so much for giving to us so evocatively the pain of not just Frankenstein, but I guess any and every one of us who has wanted to reach out, who has wanted a like-minded soul to share their world with, only to be shut out, only to be told that we don't fit into their scheme of things. So that is something that women have to grapple with, that writers have to grapple with if they choose unconventional topics, unconventional life choices. That was wonderfully presented. Thank you, Nobonita. And now I will ask Madhumita Di, my co-coordinator, Madhumita Mojumdar, to present her piece and then take over the anchoring proceedings as well from here. Madhumita Di.
Thank you, Shudeshna. My poem today is called A Walk to Home, inspired largely by those immigrant workers who had been suddenly forced to go back to their home, or they couldn't go back to their home when the sudden lockdown was declared. The road ahead was unpromising. A tin box and a toddler on shoulder, half veil over her sweaty face, the tail of the cotton sari tied in knot held their last savings. The 6-year clutched the 10 rupees milk bikkies packet, 3 for lunch and 3 for dinner. The pair of blue sunglasses on the man was reminiscent of life once painted. 400 kilometers and 2 borders crossed. Home was still a mirage. 3 years ago, a journey began away from home. The 10 by 12 half brick and half bamboo weaves at the rate of 800 a month. A few hundred saved, the foundation of life unlived, a small cot 2 years ago, and sleeping toddlers on it. A dream broken by an unknown strike. The master was kind and spoke of changing times, gave his child a few books and a new dress, wings for a caged bird, the soft humming of alphabets. The man scrubbed the car softly, a faint hope on his brow. The slow fire at home, promise of a mill, lost violently. A month's pay and no promise of another day. The rent not a possibility, cot sold at 1,000. To home where no hearth awaited, a camera scanning. How long have you been walking? Tears and hollowness captured with professionalism. 4 biscuit packets, a payment of the interview, 4 pairs of hollow eyes, a passerby thrust 4 bottles of water and a sanitizer. Few helpful people masked them, 4 pairs of lonely eyes. This time, the camera captured those who masked them, humanitarian efforts, biscuits, bottles of water, and a mask. No one wanted an answer, yet home was miles away. Thank you.
Thank you, Madhumita Di. That was, I should not be using the word wonderful for such a painful poem. We, as Shanjukta Di said, that we only have our poems and words to capture the pain, but the people who have actually gone through these experiences, it's difficult to even imagine, but giving them a voice matters, and you just did that wonderfully. Thank you so much. And now I would ask you to take over the proceedings.
Thank you, Shudeshna. It is wonderful to take this journey of silence ahead. I mean, we have been talking about different kinds of silences here. On a lighter note, in these platforms, these online platforms where we keep on saying, am I audible? Let us be audible. So we hope that we will be audible with this. I would first invite my co-coordinator for the day, Shudeshna Chakraborty, to read her piece.
Thank you, Madhumita Di. Yes, this is the classic case of आप मुझे काजी कहें और मैं आपको हाजी कहूँ. We are just exchanging things. But as I wrote in the group, our WhatsApp group also, that for technical necessities, we have had to kind of break queue and enter. My poem, this is something I wrote a couple of years back, actually, and have worked on it a little bit. I have tried to express the silent pain of the empaths, the people who try to understand everyone's sorrows only to find there is no one to listen to theirs. Mine is a rag picker's life, this sack you see on my shoulders, full of sorrows I could not bear on brows other than mine. In one corner there lie the doubts that plagued you before that make or break meeting. Remember me surreptitiously taking them away, putting a bit of justified confidence there? Tucked up in another cranny, the unuttered screams of the little girl next door, afraid of the dark. Here, the pain of that lame puppy, carelessly run over by people out to have a good time. But your eyes seem fixed somewhere else. What's behind that door, you ask? That locked door you can see in my eyes? That, that is the land of naught, the mask which has been protecting me from my own pandemics. Forgotten dates, untended illnesses, successes not celebrated, surprises neither given nor received. Me befooled, me betrayed, me forgotten. Some long ago scars, some still fresh gashes, all lie shoved hastily, wriggling, squealing behind that door. No rag pickers have yet come knocking, asking for them. No exchange offers have yet been given. Oh, I tried showing them, as they say in fairy tales, once upon a time. The dried up tears, the ashes of desires, the loves unrequited. But confidence is shared, our weakness is bared. So now I play along, joking about how the most expensive creams don't lighten the shadows under my eyes, totally silent about what caused them in the first place. Inside that room, behind that door, as the stinking pus of old wounds drains its poison into the flowing gore of new ones, holding on to yellowing photographs and crumpled memories, I simply ensure that my Facebook update always reads, आज से पहले, आज से ज्यादा खुशी आज तक नहीं मिली. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shudeshna, for that wonderful poem. Yes, this is a poem of our times. I mean, like forget that, we often look at the facade. We often forget to ask, people around us, if there is something that they would want to share. So we never break that silence. Thank you so much for bringing that forward in this evening. I would now request Shaptaparna Roy to make her presentation, please. Shaptaparna.
A very good evening to this profoundly poetic audience. My first piece, titled Resounding Silence, is inspired by Simon and Garfunkel's song, Sound of Silence. I think in this phase of lockdown and now unlock now, we have all been introspecting and ruminating about our lives. So here is my first piece, Resounding Silence. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, you are. You are audible.
Okay. My home is on Mount Merapi. It erupts every now and then. There is no sweet music inside. At midnight, during the day, at late evenings, I keep checking if all the windows are shut. A scorpion can creep in, a snake can crawl, or a crab. Through the cracks and crevices seeps in rain, smoke, and quakes. Veins rise on my paling skin. Feet as flat as the earth twitches. The mouth gulps in food as though someone will draw it out of the throat. Sanity hangs at the edge of silence. Silence boomerangs. I don't hear anyone outside. There are many more houses around, I guess. I just keep breathing, breathing, listening to the sound of silence. My second piece is titled Skin Deep. My body is growing silently, like amoeba, they say. The pores on the cheek, as though breathing along with the nostrils. The nose too is growing blunt. My face, hands, and feet patchy with suntan. The hairline receding, lending no wisdom to the face. They say, I was born dark, ordinary. Scrubbing for years has made the skin wheatish, they say. Save the smile, there is nothing noteworthy, the only saving grace. The white, chalky teeth, flashing light at night, serves some purpose, they say. The skin behind the ear was tested at birth to find the possibility of fairness. With no hope of final redemption, they don't say anything anymore. Thank you.
Thank you, Shaktaparna. Those were two wonderful poems. You set us thinking, with this poem, Skin Deep. This is, this kind of stigma, this kind of loneliness is something that perhaps, is there. We have seen it within family, perhaps face them ourselves. I absolutely will keep that line in my mind. Sanity hangs at the edge of silence. So that was wonderful. Thank you so much. With that, I would move on to the next presenter for the day, Riddhiman Roy. Can I have Riddhiman Roy presenting his speech, please?
Hi, good evening. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yeah, good evening. I'd first like to thank Dr. Shaptashi Maulik for introducing me to IPPL and Professor Shongita Shannal for introducing me to this reading today. So this is the first time I'm going to be reading a poem written down by me. So here's the poem called Silence. There was a time, I remember silence. You were the shield of the dignified. Silence, you were the last resort people availed when everyone else had denied. Silence, you still are beautiful, but without an accompaniment or reason, to take shelter under you in this world is nothing less than treason. When the little girl comes home running with bruises on both her hands, and her father, perturbed, wants to know what happened, to know he demands, you cannot take her by hand to enter your pitiless void, because if she doesn't speak up, how will those who her childhood destroyed, those who pinned her against the dirt and scarred her needlessly and drew blood from her, hurt her ceaselessly, ever be brought in front of blind justice? Silence, if you stop her against humanity, it will be a gross injustice. And the new bride who went to start her new life is beaten mercilessly. Her only crime is being a wife. Her mother too faces the same ordeal. So give them the power to move beyond a heavy exhale. Silence, don't let them hide their teary eyes and red faces by pulling you in front as a veil. And what about the innumerable people who keep quiet, hide their orientation because they fear they won't be accepted by their family, society, or nation? And when an old man walking in the park with his grandchild sees two boys holding hands in love, young, passionate, and wild, he is reminded of his own time, young and firm and handsome in his teen, and how he used to steal glances at boys and try to memorize every handsome face he had seen, and how once he held his friend's hand, felt his warm breath on his neck. His desires, his true self, he left unexplored. He called on you, silence, to put his passions under check. Have we ever stopped to think how a person must have spent all his life trying to adjust in and play a part God never intended him to? Silence, you came to me in my lowest, and in my head, wicked thoughts of self-harm you began to sow. And as I lay on your lap, watching the serpentine swirls of smoke against the light, you used to whisper in my ears stories of death and its omnipotent might. Silence, you are only good with protests and marches, I have realized, because by resorting to you, no good has ever materialized. Silence, leave me alone, the students alone, the oppressed alone. Stop turning your victims into things cold as stone. Silence, be the power behind the empowered. Be their dignity and their resonating voice. For silence, you can't be the answer to everything. You can only be a choice. Thank you.
Thank you, Riddhima. That was a powerful poem. And, thank you for bringing this up. Silence about issues that we are uncomfortable or we are made to think that we should be uncomfortable about. From this platform of IPPL, also talking about gender blending, I think is one of the ways of breaking the many silences that we are wanting to address this evening. Thank you so much. I would now request Shongita Shanna to present her piece. Shongita.
Thank you. Thank you, Madhumita Di. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, you are.
My poem is titled The Changing Color of Silence. I tried to catch how silence has changed for me, how I've seen it changing. Once upon a time, someone wanted to catch silence on paper. Things people don't say. To dive headlong into the depths of an ocean where the waves are churned by breaths of excruciatingly heavy wordlessness. To walk along an alley where silence is hanging in the air, like icicles dripping the leftover of winter, like the smell of dried earth after the rain beats. He wanted to catch that silence, which says much more than speech, which brewed and whistled inside the head. A silence that read beautiful to some, scary to some more. Poets and scholars were much interested in such silences. But that silence is lost in a baffling turn of orders. Now it seems it got distilled into a mass of solid nothing, of dried up humanity, stranded midway on the lips of complacent creatures marked safe. I'm afraid that silence doesn't hang anymore, inspiring a poet's subject. It swells, expands, and eats up the heart like the burnt embers in the ashes. Thank you.
Thank you, Shankita. That was thought-provoking, I would say. I loved that particular line, dried earth after the rain. I hope, this particular poem, which addresses, that feeling of smell of, of the first rain. And that way, I believe, we will be able to perhaps, talk, break, deal with the many silences that we have to bear, cope, and perhaps keep quiet about them. Thank you so much for bringing that up. I would now request Ankita Boral to make her presentation, please. Ankita.
Ma'am, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay, first of all, very good evening to everyone present here. I would like to thank Professor Shongita Shanna for introducing me to IPPL and Professor Madhumita Majumdar for being so encouraging. Today, I'm going to present I made a visual presentation and I borrowed a few lines from Virginia Woolf to conjure up an image of discomfort that we are feeling currently because of the shutting off of everything that was once normal. So my presentation portrays the silencing of everything that we accepted as normal, and the silent bubble that we have retreated into. So I'll just share my screen.
All this, there is vacancy and silence. And for all this, there is vacancy and silence somewhere in the machine. On the whole, I do not much mind, because what I like is to flash and dash from side to side, coated on by what I call reality. If I never felt these extraordinary pervasive strains of unrest or rest or happiness or discomfort, I should float down in a quiescence. Here is something to fight. And when I wake up early, I say to myself, fight, fight. If I could catch the feeling, I would. The feeling of singing of the real world, as one is driven by loneliness and silence from the habitable world. And this curious steed, life, is genuine. Does any of this convey what I want to say? But I have not really laid hands on the emptiness after all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ankita. That was beautiful. I think we would all appreciate here the fact that, yes, we are trying to get accustomed to what is known as the new normal, where perhaps such platforms, visual platforms, have become a way of life or a form of life. But the usage of the hands only, and not using any kind of face, I believe, is exactly the message of this particular piece that you're trying to say, that we never really get deep into things. We are looking at statuses, we are looking at the kind of likes perhaps that we get on FB status, but never really go on to find out what that person is feeling or how that person is. So thank you for bringing that up in such an equivocative and a beautiful visual manner. This will remain with us for some time. Thank you so much. And now I would invite Madhu Srivastava to make her presentation.
Thank you, Madhumita Di. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay, good evening, everybody. After this beautiful presentation, I would say I'm going to speak about very simple human emotions, which are often muffled by the silence of life. So I'm going to read two very small pieces. The first goes, Silent Heart. In silence you sneaked. I heard you shriek, excited in Ilse's feet. Saw you remain silent still, steel-like in your coldness, removed in time's flight. In silence my heart cries, accepts your silence as a lie. My longing drowns with the setting sun, to arise in the yearning of the pale moon. In silence I love, in silence I long, love the silence in my heart.
Thank you so much.
Okay,
that was wonderful.
Oh,
yeah, you have. Yes, yes, please.
Okay.
Yes.
The next one is Silent Love. Drop a word. An earnest request goes unheeded as usual. How deep your silence cuts, ignominy enshrines. My quest the horizon eludes, as the setting star. A chance rainbow allures, time's wasteful glass drops life in tiny grains. We head towards a dead end. No one knows when. All love, lust, longings to bring to an end. What remains is a mystery, a myth, a telltale story. Life is now to be, live or leave. Time's chariot flies, chased by virus rides. Thank you.
Thank you, Madhu. Thank you for those wonderful two poems. I loved that lyrical, dreamy quality. We have been, talking about, a bit of heaviness, but, as SDG ma'am had right at the beginning also talked about, some sort of a romanticism in silence, which comes up in the words of your poems, Chance, Rainbow, Love Your Silence. Thank you for that, those wonderful poems. Now, I would invite Paramita Mukherjee Malik to make her presentation, please.
Thank you so much, Madhumita and Shudeshna. Thank you to Nishi also, who requested me to be in the Kolkata IPPL online program, and I'm so happy to be here. My poem for today, The Story of Silence. Where do I start the story of silence? For yawns and yawns, the scream of silence have pervaded the air. Silence of the slaves being beaten up and burned, then whipped to burst the blisters, which were then salt and peppered. Cruelty for the mirth of the slave lords. Silence of the prisoners in the concentration camps, hung upside down to meet their death. Inhuman treatment at the whim of the toothbrush-mustached man. Where do I start the story of silence? For ages unknown, the shriek of silence has filled the air. Silence when prisoners were burnt alive for the warmth and light for King Nero's guests. Silence when widows were forced to death for the benefit of the greedy relatives. One day, all silence will break. We will all perpetrators of cruelty forsake. All brutality and inhumanity will cease. There will be love and brotherhood, and the world will have peace. Thank you.
Thank you, Paramita, for that wonderful, wonderful poem. It was a slice of history, I believe, just a continued journey, of people that we have refused often to hear. You made us relive those moments of widows, of prisoners, of tortures, bringing out definitely an aspect of silence. These are people we often even don't take into account that they need to be heard. So thank you for bringing this up. Thank you so much. I would now request Aviri Shaha to make her presentation.
Thank you, Madhumita Di, and good evening, everybody. This is my first virtual reading on IPPL, and I'm excited and nervous. So this poem has been inspired by my visit to a place called Lamahata Hill, not very far from Tinchile, in 2014. The place was so serene and so beautiful. It's as if I may say that I carried the silence in my heart. So here it goes. Tired of hopping on and off the car all day long, I longed for some respite. I wished to camp, to stay a while. The stepped hillside of Lamahata, the rounded greyish slabs of slate, winding along the forlorn path through the lonely rows of pine, drove me up my battered soul to realms of gold, mist, sunshine. I climbed on, intoxicated, slow but greedy for more, and stretching my arms like a wing, I soaked in silence like a sponge, a voracious sponge, until all the babble stopped, until I could see myself, until I could touch my core and feel my drops. And is this how people find God on silent mountaintops? Thank you.
Thank you, Averi. I think you have spoken for many of us here. Bangali Bhraman Premik. And for us, that this time, of course, means that, even when the puja is supposedly in the air and we are not able to plan going anywhere, the reminiscent of that, that Wordsworthian feeling that you brought back, this nostalgia, the tone of it. Thank you so much for that, So that I think we are really carrying those memories, those silences of those visits close to nature. Thank you for bringing that up here. Now I would request Aparna Singh to make her presentation. Aparna.
Thank you, Madhumita Dey. Thank you, IPPL, and thank you to the two wonderful hosts. Uh, I have two poems. My first poem is called Daughters, and it goes like this. Her mother gave birth to her, miracle of sorts. Daughters are not born, they are made. They are made into mothers who give birth. The trick is to keep breathing life into ideas, to nurture them as little bodies of flesh and blood, of hope and despair, bodies with blood coursing through nonchalant veins, gave birth to ideas again. Those ideas were babies she held close to her bosom, nurtured them with the milk of her thoughts, which must have fused the brain and the heart. And the next poem is called Birth. The baby had found its way, the mother still languishing. Her path was bouldered, uneven, and uphill. She waited for the light, trespassing the tunnel. The roads were crooked, crooked as the stars in those blinding nights. Have patience, said the others. Just a few more miles, maybe stretching to some more. Voices poured in. Her eyes had dimmed with the pain of birth and death. Thank you.
Thank you, Aparna. Thank you so much for bringing that up. Perhaps, we are so tuned as women, as mothers to take this whole aspect of motherhood being absolutely a wonderful journey and never really talk about your pain. And that poem on the daughter-mother relationship left me somewhat speechless. I don't know what to say about it. Thank you for bringing this up. Thank you so much. I would now request our last poet for the day, but Bulbul Chatterjee to make her presentation. Bulbul?
Good evening, my IPPL friends. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay. I'm Bulbul, and today I would like to read a poem by Mr. Thomas Simon, who is an accomplished HR professional and worked in Tata Consultancy Services for more than 35 years. He is an amateur poet and he contributes regularly at Chennai Poets Circle. Beats by Thomas Simon. She never appears bored or tired, since she possesses a skill that few people have. She does not have any hobbies to be talked about, but she can make the finest bracelets that are in demand among even the starlets. Does not intend to make it a profession. Today, it has caught her fascination. Many wander aimlessly through life without anything to be called a passion and blame themselves for the situation. Blessed are those who are light in thought, with very little to be won and fought. But they stand tall amongst the most sought, since without a passion, most things come to naught, but not her with an art in thought. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bulbul. This was different. And thanking for for this wonderful poem that ends this journey of silence, of bringing up this idea of hobbies and things, in a way, that kind of a highly competitive corporate world, where perhaps these things do not matter, and perhaps these little thoughts are always lost. Thank you for bringing. I think I do have a friend. You remind me of through this particular poem. Thank you for bringing this to us this day. Now we come to the end of today's journey. It has been wonderful. It has been a thoroughly enriching experience as far as I am concerned. Listening to various poets, listening to their thoughts, and of course, talking about the myriad aspects of silence. I would now request Sudeshna Chakraborty to give the vote of thanks for the day. Thank you, everyone, for being here.
Thank you, Madhumita for handing over the baton, the mic, whatever, to me. I hate doing this vote of thanks virtually. Vote of Thanksgiving should always accompany a lot of handshakes and hugs, but social distancing. The last poem, Bulbul, she struck a wonderful note, and it got me thinking that education, knowledge, whatever we call it, it has two purposes. One, to make the world a better place to live in, and second, probably to make the people better people to live with. Whereas we cannot make the vaccines, whereas we are not corporate workhorses, probably what words can do, what we have tried to do here, is to give vent to our emotions, to express ourselves, and in that way, maybe just become slightly better people to live with. I mean, at least the very fact that we were looking at some other people except our own family members, that will give us a little bit of venting space, so that we'll go back better people, in better moods to them, and they will feel that, okay, we are at least better people to live with right now. So that was wonderful. We have had a great session. I would like to begin by thanking IPPL, obviously, for providing this platform, even in pandemic-stricken times, when we no longer can meet physically, but at least we can meet in this way. The advisory board was always wanted the events to keep happening, giving us their suggestions. Bashobi Fraser, she is with us today. She actually made the effort to join us. That was so sweet of her. Thank you, Bashobidi. I would like to thank all the EC members and of course President Shanjukta Di. Ma'am, in whatever role I meet you, in whichever platform, you'll always remain my teacher, from whom I have learned so much. Thank you for remaining that guiding light for so many of us here. Jharna Di has joined us, Professor Jharna Shannal, another of our teachers, very enthusiastic poet and encouraging all of us every moment. Thank you, Jharna Di. All IPPL members for enthusiastically responding to our calls, for every poem that you have posted, all the readers especially for sharing your insights, your thought processes with us, enriching us, everyone who joined in, both on our Zoom session and those who are seeing us on FB Live, who have given up time on their Sunday evenings to see and hear us. So thanks all of you. And we cannot say that the samosas and tea is waiting outside. So grab the tea or coffee at home, and let's reminisce about this evening, which was so wonderful. Thank you, all of you again, and see you all soon. Thank you very much. And Madhumita Di, thanks for being such a wonderful co-coordinator. Thank you.
We end with that, and we hope we have more silences that we can read in future. And of course, Shanjukta ma'am, who set the ball rolling, and with her encouraging words, I think we could, both of us, I think, we could carry the day. It meant a lot for both Sudeshna and me. Thank you, everyone, for being there. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye then.